You know, it may be once there had been a cup, but then it was broken, right? And then a broken cup, but it's not a complete cup anymore.
Right. Well, this is what we agree to as far as definitions. So I'd sort of put this in a different category than properties of the universe. But go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm thinking is that the non-existence of a God could actually be heavily evidenced to the point that we could say it's a fact. If the concept of the God is clearly enough defined, and I know I've heard Matt say that before. So
yeah.
you have to, before you can talk about God, you have to say what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So in other words, you have to ascribe properties to it.
Right.
Right. So what are the characters of a God entity? And one of the usual claims of a God's abilities is omnipotence. Now, I think this is a flawed idea because it admits the idea of logical impossibilities, such as a God could create an even more powerful God, and an object he couldn't move, and so on. And it basically becomes an infinite regression. Sure,
but to be fair, omnipotence isn't a characteristic of all proposed gods. And,
no, that's right.
And amongst the modern theologians who've addressed this, when they talk about omnipotence, most of them are savvy enough to define omnipotence as all power that is not logically contradictory. And they also get around to the other aspect of what you're talking about by defining this God in such a way that it is not contained within reality.
But I've just said that the universe is that which exists. So that's
yeah, but they want to play games with.
They're not talking about the universe. What are they talking about?
Right.
They want to say it's outside the universe.
I mean, that's why
it's a special pleading idea.
That's one of the reasons that I objected to using the universe as that which exists, when really you already have a word for that, existence. You could use reality or whatever else. There's a confusion about the term universe. Now, if you want to use reality and say that their God is outside of reality, therefore making it unreal, I'm okay with that. But I don't think that you're talking about. I don't think that particular rebuttal to the God claims is going to carry any water, because they've already jumped that hurdle and said, no, we're defining something that we don't necessarily fully comprehend, but it transcends reality, and it has, if it's omnipotent, it has all power that is logically possible. And it's a cheat. I fully admit it. I mean, it's a cheat. It's not like I accept this at all. I'm just saying that the counter argument that you're presenting, it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay. So my underlying notion is this: that what I've been thinking about is that if you could, basically, Christians, for example, come up with the idea of a creator God in which it can create things like universes, for example. And maybe it's only, from what you were saying, maybe they're claiming that it's only done that once and could only do that once. But I thought that they claimed that it had complete knowledge of the past.
There are people who believe that their God has complete knowledge of the past, the present, the future. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So my contention is that where does that information reside?
That knowledge?
Within
so,
their,
for example,
within their magical being.
The disposition of every electron, every subatomic particle, energy.
You're applying...
God's ways are mysterious, is their answer, more or less.
You are applying the limits of physical reality to something that is defined as being not limited to physical reality.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is that defining it away doesn't really solve the problem, does it?
It sure does.
It does for them, but we would call it special pleading. It's a logical ruse to try to get around claiming that this thing that they're trying to prove exists has special properties.
Yeah, I guess then I'm saying that some of those properties are impossible within the parameters of the universe that we know of.
Okay.
And so
I would say
the idea is
it just adds to God's mystery.
The response to that is that the response to that isn't that they're impossible. It's just that you don't know of a way to do it.
I'm sorry, that they don't know, but I don't know what?
It's not that you haven't demonstrated that it's impossible. You're saying that you're basically saying that you don't know of a way that this could happen within reality, and they're saying, well, just because you don't know it doesn't matter, and by the way, we've defined God as transcending reality. I mean, it's a go-nowhere claim with them. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's absurd what they're doing, but when they define away those problems, they have in fact defined away those problems, and in many cases they're logically sound to do so, even though the thing they're positing is absurd in the highest degree.
But then that undermines their argument. If it's absurd, why give it any value?
No, but, how else can I explain this? Just because when you come back to, if it's, I don't know how else to explain this other than they have a definition that is supposedly incomprehensible, in which case that's what I would attack in the first place. That they have.
This is just God did it.
No, but you're trying to build you're trying to build an argument that asserts that something is impossible, and you can't do that because you are necessarily limiting yourself to a scope that does not include the scope at which their God is being defined. It's like saying it's impossible to fit 1,000 elephants in this room, and they're saying we're not limited to this room, sorry. And you're saying, well, I don't see how it's possible when this room is all I know. That's the way this plays out. So you can't assert it as an impossibility while limiting it to a scope that doesn't apply to what they're positing.
Even if you make it the universe.
This is why I didn't want to use the term universe in the first place. But yeah.
I can't see how that can be defended. That if you let's consider the universe when it was very small. Okay, God presumably had complete knowledge of the universe when it was very small.
But they're already positing a God that came before that universe and exists outside of it.
What does that mean? Okay, I know that argument.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, to exist outside the universe is a meaningless statement as far as we know.
I don't disagree with that. I'm not taking their position. I'm telling you what the response is, and that from what they've defined, there's not a contradiction there. And what you're attempting to do in asserting an impossibility, while it's completely rational within the bounds of reality as we understand it, borders on an argument from ignorance. It borders on the, I can't see how this is possible, when they're looking at this from a scope of, you have limited understanding of the universe, and you have limited the definition, and it doesn't apply to the God that I believe in. It's a non-starter argument.
So you can't go down that argument that far. You have to stop at that definition and reject the definition.
Well, in reality, sure, I'm on board. I think it's asinine, but it goes nowhere. It's kind of like, and I don't mean this in any insulting way, but it's kind of like an inverse Pascal's wager, because it's only going to be convincing to people who already accept the premise of reality, and Pascal's wager is only going to be convincing to people who are already accepting this proposition of a God. So I don't see that this argument is going to be any more for people of an opposing worldview, any more impactful to those people than Pascal's wager would to somebody who understands it. It's because they've convinced themselves that they either directly themselves have a greater understanding of the full nature of reality that you are not able to perceive, or they just willingly accept that there is a God who has this understanding, and they take that on faith. And after that, everything else just gets chucked aside. Yeah.
So really it is just a kind of a God did it.
Yeah, it is.
God, which I think, okay, but maybe there are some people who might be prepared to move on from that. So I just want to very quickly end the rest of my argument. Okay. The idea is that the information about every minute slice of time and the matter and energy distribution of the universe within that small slice of time, in order for it to be recreated at will by this entity, has to be stored somewhere within, I'm saying at the moment limiting it to the universe. So I'm asserting, I'm still not 100% convinced on this myself, but I'm asserting that there's only one thing which is big enough to hold all the information about the universe, and that is the universe itself. In other words, it's actually impossible to know every energy state, every position and disposition of everything in any particular part of the universe at any particular time in the past. Maybe I'm sorry, it wasn't exactly what I meant. What I mean is you can know about some things, but you can't know everything all the time of any particular part of the universe. There's nowhere that information can actually be stored.
Unless you've defined something that transcends the limits of the universe.
Yeah, well, I guess I've started off with the universe, and that's it. I am
Sure.
the construct of the universe. I think that's reasonable.
And I don't disagree, but I don't think you're going to convince anybody of that if they're holding a different view. But who knows? Maybe it'll work out. All right. Thanks for calling,
Okay.
Peter.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Enjoy
it.
the show.
Cheers. All right, as a reminder, there's like there's less than 5 minutes left. I'm going to try and get to a couple calls real quick. We are going to dinner at El Arroyo after the show's over. They'll put the address up as a reminder in just a minute. Rob in Atlanta. Are you
Hey,
there?
how's it going, guys?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Hey, I just want to start off by saying every time I think I have an original thought, I watch one of your episodes and realize y'all thought about it already.
Yeah, and don't go assuming that the thought originated with any of us either, because we
A lot of the stuff is rehashed.
we
yeah.
prey off of each other. I get ideas from everybody here, and we do a lot of reading from a lot of great thinkers and a lot of good discussions. So it's just one vehicle to get the word out, and copy any argument you want if you find it useful and spread it out.
I don't know. Well, it's nice to know people see things my way sometimes.
Good.
Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was you got a recent Ray Comfort revelation. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but the cornerstone of his thing is, are you a good person? And then
Sure.
he goes into the, you ever lied, stolen?
Yeah, he's got a good
lust
shtick
it.
there. He hasn't used it so much lately, though.
That's because it's been trumped.
Yeah. Okay, well, I was just going to say, if he ever tries to use it again, I was wanting to give people a tip. Ask him to define what good is. Because I recently saw a video where he actually said that good means perfect.
Oh, okay. And nobody's perfect, so everybody...
And actually, if he said that, then that's open for a really big contradiction, because good is the term that is used in Genesis when God looks around his creation and says that it's good. And there are countless preachers who have pointed out that specifically says good and not perfect, in order to allow for things like the fall and free will and disobedience and things like that. Regarding his "Are you a good person?" and beginning with the "Have you ever told a lie?" thing, he was trumped wholeheartedly on the Hellbound Alley show when somebody asked him, "Hey Ray, have you ever told the truth? What does that make you?"
Truth teller.
So you're a truth teller. It really is that simple, and this is what happened.
It's
this
an
is
emotional
why
manipulation mechanism is what he's doing.
It's great. Don was somebody. It's great because he's got little sound bites, and he has things that on the surface are appealing, particularly to people who already believe this stuff or are already predispositioned to believe this stuff. But really, it's raised at like a kindergarten theology level. It is the simplest stuff. And I don't think, he may object to that. I think he actually enjoys that. I think he relishes the idea that, he's got this straightforward, simple, everybody gets it approach to God. But on that note, the show is actually over, and thanks for the call, and thanks for everybody. Thanks to the people who do all the work behind the scenes, and thanks to phones who have finally stayed up a little while. We'll see some of you down at El Arroyo. Don't forget to email about Godless Gamers, and we'll see you next week. Well, we lost Greg. Luca?
Hello. Hey, what's up, Matt?